So allow me to share my screen. When you join us, mute. Esther, you can mute. No, I am on. Can share my screen. Now, Conversations with Esther is an impact driven professional platform that transforms your view on matters mental health, human resource, legal, and your holistic wellness. We ignite ethical and authentic leadership while promoting best practice within industries. Conversation with Esther equips you and the workplace with relevant legal, human resource, and holistic wellness skills through corporate training, motivational talks, end-to-end HR consultancy, support, and career mentorship programs. Guided by our three values, integrity, excellence, and impact, we envision a workplace transformed by professional conversations, respectful relationships, and intentional leadership. So this evening we'll be talking about caregivers' mental health support. So caregivers are the invisible backbone of every workplace. They show up to meetings after sleepless nights, hit deadlines between hospital visits, and carry responsibilities most people never see. Supporting caregivers at work is not a nice to have, it is leadership. Join us for an insightful Zoom session on how we support caregivers in the workplace. So allow me to introduce our speaker, and even before I introduce our speaker, I would like us to check our chat section and check our chat section and help respond to this. So I'm sharing something in the chat section. You can just type this in your chat. In your browser, sorry, in your browser. So you can write menti.com. Then once it asks for the code, you can input the number 7649344. Then respond to those questions. How many of us are there? How many of us have typed? As we do that, allow me to read our speaker's profile. So our speaker tonight is none other than Nancy Kihara M. Nancy is a clinical psychologist, digital health innovator, and founder and director My Afya Africa, a pioneering teletherapy and mental wellness platform dedicated to all families across Kenya. With 18 plus years of experience in spanning in clinical practice, having worked at Gertrude's Children's Hospital, corporate health leadership, 12 years as head of claims and digital innovation, she leads transformative conversations in mental health, accessibility, and community resilience. Under her leadership, My Afya Africa has earned the most innovative digital mental health program at the GHP Awards 2024, Africa Company of the Year 2025, My Afya Africa. Nancy herself was named Outstanding Social Impact Champion Superwomen Business Awards in 2025. She is the convener of several national initiatives, including the Storytelling for Mental Health Summits, Women's Mental Health Summit, the Men's Resilient Mastery Lab, Coffee Conversation with Moms, and the Young Minds Festival. Her expertise spans trauma-informed care, youth wellness, workplace mental health, socio-emotional resilience. She is a sought-after speaker, trainer, and community leader dedicated to redefining mental health in Africa. So, without much ado, allow me to welcome Nancy Kihara on stage. I can see Teresa is asking, what are you typing? You type menti.com. When you type menti.com in your chat, it will ask for a code. And once it asks, so menti.com, you can type that in your browser. Once you type menti.com, you'll be asked to enter the code. So once asked to enter the code, you do 7649 3444. Then you join. So once you join, you enter the code, you'll have a question. There's a question on that you'll get on your form on your browser. What is one thing caregivers? Carry that colleagues rarely see? So you can be able to answer that once now you've written. Karibu sana Nancy. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jay, for the introduction. I am very happy to be here this evening. Actually, excited to have this conversation. And for me, I'm happy also to see joined by several other people who are here. And I will invite each and every one of us that we are going to make this a conversation. We make this a conversation so that we are all sharing and exchanging our experiences over time on how it feels, whether you have been directly impacted or whether you are currently having to do this or you have seen your friends go through this. And so I see we are quite a number, and I'm only seeing 5 responses. Kindly requesting that we interact. If you're not able to type, you can scan this QR code, it will still take you there. And the first question, it's talking about what is that one thing the caregivers carry that colleagues rarely see? And because this is a workplace related conversation, we know that many workplaces, we have employees who are silently carrying heavy caregiving responsibilities. And while we are still there, we try to remain very productive, very professional, and emotionally present. We finish reports, we attend meetings, we answer emails, but we are still caring for people in our lives. They could be aging parents, they could be sick loved ones, they could be our own children, because also it comes with its own challenges. Could be our sick spouses or anyone with mental health challenges. You can imagine those people have to take care of people with schizophrenia, or when you're on bipolar and one of the extremes, you're there and you're getting concerned when you're away from home. And sometimes you're taking care of entire uh, extended family, because we are highly communal as African society. So this conversation is where we need to ask ourselves that despite that we have to have our own personal lives and we are the same people who are going to show up at the workplaces, how are we in terms of financial, emotional, physical, as we navigate all manner of things, including the rising costs, the traffic, healthcare burdens. Sometimes you can imagine you have gotten to a point of SHA is not paying for you. You have already busted your limit with the insurance, and still their needs, their healthcare needs are still there for the care that you're giving. So the first question is, what are the one thing that caregivers carry that colleagues rarely see? A kind and a generous heart, patience, courage, worry, exhaustion. And exhaustion, it seems like many people have mentioned it. It's the one that's bold. They carry burden of sickness, efficacy of caregivers, resilience, and worrying about the sick. The next question, let's also participate very quickly. Still, there is a next question. Would you feel safe? So, assume it is you. Would you feel safe telling your supervisor you're overwhelmed because of some things that are running behind the scenes? Would you feel safe to tell your supervisor? I am, yes, that's very good. Another one, would you feel safe? If you're not able to follow the Mentimeter, you can as well type on the chat box. Would you feel safe to tell your supervisor you're overwhelmed at home? Let's engage. I have only seen one bold yes, and that's also encouraging. And to the last engagement conversation. Now, what do you think your workplace rewards? What does your workplace reward? What is that one virtue, value, or vice that your workplace rewards? Jay, am I having any chats responses because I'm not getting any on Menti remuneration? Your okay, your workplace rewards. This question is not asking how you get rewarded. It's not like what you get from work. Is what does your workplace look at you as a person, and that is what they reward. Is
Can
it?
see on the chat section, we have result oriented,
Mhm,
accountability, intentionality.
mhm. Yeah, those are important. That's very good. Compliance, competency, great.
Integrity and presence.
Oh, what did you? What was that?
Integrity and presence on the chat from the chat.
Integrity and presence. Great. So these questions are going to form part of the basics that we are going to go through in this conversation. And so we'll highly engage on the chat section. And we'll ask Jay as my moderator to help me to read through, because when I project, I'm having a challenge following on what is in the chat box. Okay, so welcome again. And having asked those pertinent questions, who is a caregiver? Who do we consider to be a caregiver? And we can also do that on the chat box. Jay, because I can't read if they do, please, you can read it out for us.
Yeah, Nicorara.
Who is a caregiver? Are we having any responses yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me just get into it.
Anyone?
So,
I can see anyone taking care of of a sick person.
anyone taking care of a sick person, that's a good response. Anyone taking care of a sick person can be an adult, it can be a child. We have seen instances where children have had to step up at a very young age to take care of their aging parents or sickly parents because they don't have anyone else, either because they have been neglected by the extended family, or those it's only them who can be able to do it. And a caregiver gives not only the physical support, that's what we see, that they moved them from here, they cleaned them, they also carry their own emotional weight, and they take the care of these individuals where they cannot fully take care of themselves. Sometimes there are parts of this wholesomeness that gets affected because you're going to invest one more than the other. And sometimes, while that support might look very simple, it sometimes carries a very deep responsibility for the people who are doing it. And it demands that you have to show up consistently, because their needs don't wait. And again, for example, if they have to take meds and they have to be reminded, especially if they have dementia or they're elderly or they're immobile, they're depending on you and I, as their caregiver, to keep supporting them. And anyone can be a caregiver. If you haven't been right now, you tomorrow you can be thrust into it. Accidents do happen, and people get in circumstances where they are paraplegic, or they have to be on a cast, or they have to be, bedridden for a while. You could be a child of special needs, and the parent has to take care of them. And you know how much this disrupts, especially the female parents' plans about the projection about life, because now this they need around the clock support. You can have a spouse who is supporting a spouse who is also having a chronic illness. It could be mental, it could be physical. And adults have said they're taking care of their parents these days, siblings as well, where they maybe the parents are not in a position to, or they happen to be in different locations. Sometimes we employ people who will help us to take care of them. So even them, they become caregivers. And this is what people are very familiar to. People who have gone to school of nursing assistants, those are the caregivers that we likely get to know when we hear people have gone abroad and they're doing caregiving in those old based homes. But now, in the local context, and what is familiar and present at our doorsteps is that this has become more common, and especially because of the advent of cancer, because it's become so debilitating, requiring round the clock support, sometimes becoming very brutal to the people we are taking care of. So as I've said, it's wholesome care, physical, emotional, financial, because you've got to take care of their needs, which don't come cheap. Um, the truth is that sometimes, and from what you've answered, what we don't see is that we do not see that they look like they are strong, but maybe nobody has asked them, how are you doing today? They are seen as a responsible child who did not abandon their parents when they really needed them. But inside them, they're just so overwhelmed and saying it's only because I do not want to be judged by the society. They have to keep doing it even when they are already feeling very drained. And that is the most dependable person. Sometimes people use their guilt tripped, or manipulated into the roles, and you don't know how to get out of it. So sometimes people do it with a lot of bitterness. Some people are doing it because they have no other alternative, and sometimes it's because it is what we are supposed to do. Our Ubuntu, our African tradition is that we have to take care of other family members. But now, this is where the challenge is. So we are at the workplace. Let's not forget that. So when we are showing up, we have to show compassion to the people that we are taking care of. So within us, we are carrying a burden, a hidden load that nobody gets to see what we are dealing with. And it could be financial pressure. So I want you to take, for example, this person who has been going for their chemo. They are covered for only a few cycles. The rest of them, they have to pay cash. Now, with the current economic times, it is something that really gets to drain families. And it is not an option we have to even delay this kind of treatment. If I have a relative or someone related to me and they have mental health issues, you honestly can't keep them with us. We need to help them so that they're also able to be stabilized. So we need money to be able to do that. Sometimes our healthcare, it could come, some of these things can come at a time when we don't have that cover. We are either on a waiting period, or when the insurance decides it's not even covered, it's an exclusion. All these, we carry them with ourselves. Sometimes the finances are dwindling and you're even not having enough for yourself. So this, what it does is that it starts having an effect on your emotions. So you're almost always stressed. You're almost always feeling on the edge. You're almost always feeling like there's a doomsday, something wrong is likely to happen. At workplace, your attention is very divided because you're really very scared what is likely to happen. And that emotional exhaustion, sleep deprivation, sometimes you can imagine having somebody who is having so much pain. There's sometimes cancer can just have so much pain. This person is half the time at night, they're not sleeping. And it means you also can't sleep because you're trying to give them the relief they need, trying to either give a painkiller, if a painkiller was given, trying to give them the comfort, or just be present, just presence even when you feel helpless. And tomorrow you have to wake up again and show up at work, because we still have to show up and do what we are supposed to do. The other hidden load is usually the guilt. You know, sometimes people get to a point of feeling like that they're blaming themselves for what is happening, blaming themselves like, I'm not even giving enough support, I'm not doing enough, or feeling guilty that I have to go to work, leave them at home, and if anything happens, then what would I do? And we have seen instances in therapy where people have been unable to forgive themselves because they say, that moment when I stepped out, by the time I came back, it had happened. Maybe, just maybe, if I didn't, I would have, So living with that guilt as a caregiver, that I missed a step, I missed a support, I missed to see a sign, I missed to be quick enough, you know, and nobody will understand, and that is why we usually we ask, and when you're here, please note that if somebody is going through that, there's this common phrase people like saying, it is well. It can't be well, because to them it means a lot more than it is going to be well. Sometimes just show presence and listen to them, even as they rant out what they think. You can help them to rephrase the way they are thinking, but telling them it is well looks like almost minimizing their entire experience. The anxiety, I mean, where there is guilt, you'll always be anxious of things going wrong. The fear, what is likely to happen? What is the outcome like? How long will this take? What will happen? All these concerns. Will I be able to carry on? Will I, all these, sometimes you don't even know the hands have the answers to the things that you're asking for. Hospital fatigue, especially for those who have to be hospitalized for long. Parenting stress, if you have to share the roles, like you have to take care of this person you're taking, if you have, especially if you have very young children, also they need all your support and they may not understand why you're not being present, and this leads to mental overload. All these are the hidden loads of compassion, because compassion begins when we stop assuming everyone is okay simply because they showed up. you know by showing up, it's just saying they're doing something they need to do to fulfill a need for another who is not able to do it. That is when we also come in and help them to be able to understand, or ask them. Just sometimes, I've always said, show up and be like, today I'm going just to be here, I want you to sleep, can I sit and do a bit of what you do? Some people just crave sleep because they have had times where they have been deprived of sleep. Now, there is a question that was on the Menti. Would you talk to your supervisor? So all this is happening behind the scenes. Would you be able to talk to your supervisor and tell them, I am overwhelmed? The things happening at home, they are really stressing me. But now there is a challenge, because some employees, first, they overprocess the way this can affect their work. If you're on a contract, you're thinking now they'll start looking at whether I'm still fit enough, because I'm already becoming a burden. So if I tell them, they'll probably not understand. So if I ask, I'll be seen as weak, like people want me to man up or suck it up, or uta manage to. So people be like, let me try, let me just give it a try. Until I can't, then I'll see whether I can. Or I don't have to. Actually, I have to separate work and home. So it has to be what it is. So the other thing that people fear is that they might lose an opportunity. I mean, you will ask for permission, then next week you ask for another, because if you're doing chemo every other often and you're the only person who can be present, and then they'll start thinking you're away too much, so they might lay you off. You may be labeled of being emotional, attention seeking. I mean, are you the only one? Are you the only one going through this? Even as we have our own problems and we are not saying. So having those personal struggles used against them, you'll find that sometimes the can we talk as much as we got it as a yes. there are other things that play behind our minds that make us tongue tied or delay us asking for help. And as a result, people will suffer silently until to a burnout. Sometimes absenteeism, you know, sometimes presentism. You're just there, but you're not there because half the time your mind is wandering. Sometimes you're actually checking on half the time with the person you left at home. How is everything? And if everything is not okay, you're dashing to the toilet to pick that call. So you're at work, but you're not at work. Emotional breakdowns because it's overwhelming enough. And sometimes when it's too much, and especially when it's a child, you can imagine a child of special needs. Some parents tend to resign so that they can be able to concentrate and have that balance. So, what should organizations do? Now, it's easier to say that we need to normalize honest conversations around the people who are doing caregiving roles. But then, how do you even spot it? As a leader, how do you get to spot it? Now, my experiences have taught me that if you're keen enough, if you're close to your staff, you're likely to pick a struggle even before it is said to you. Initially, it can irritate. Initially, it can look like performance. Initially, it can look like putting you on PIP when we do not ask, tell me more. Now, because it is in tell me more that someone feels like, yeah, I probably need to come clear and say what is making me not achieve my targets. So, for example, take a staff who has always been in production. Let's say you measure their output by production numbers, and they have always been star, they have always achieved their potential. And then just in a certain quarter, their performance starts going north and it's not stable. Sometimes they try, they gather the courage, they come, they produce. At other times, they're just present, as we say, presentism. And then you start thinking, and then they also tend to shut. When you're also going through emotional stress, you're not talking much, you're withdrawing, you're trying to create just your own space. So you're seeing a behavioral problem, you're seeing a production that is performance problem, and you're starting to think this person is developing an attitude because even when you ask them, they're saying, I'm Niko Sawa. And then we take it at face value. But maybe if we just would say, I see like you're struggling. Would you want to speak about? Would you would you wish to speak about it? Maybe that's the time they would feel a safe space to be honest and say, actually, yes, I am having this and that other challenge because I'm having caregiving stress. I'm being emotionally exhausted. I'm not sleeping well. In fact, I am also not even having sufficient to eat because most of the money is going towards buying the medicine. And then probably this is someone going through grief and loss, and we only give them a week. And within that week, they didn't even manage to even process. Kindly mute the person. And employees will only thrive. And this is where we encourage about psychological safety. What will make your staff want to come to you? The reason why staff will say they don't want to come to us as leaders or as their supervisors or as their managers is because they say by the time I beat the corner, every Tom Dick and they'll be knowing that I'm going through something. So are we able to keep this to show first empathy? Two, it doesn't become every other person's subject unless we are using it to give them support, not where everybody is looking at them and saying, "Oh, this is the one we were talking about," and someone is like, "What are they saying about me?" Because those are the statements you hear on the corridors. So sometimes also we need to create give them spaces where they feel easy to speak to us. So employees will thrive where they feel heard, where they feel safe, where they feel humanized. We don't just see them as production. We don't just see them as what time did you clock in. We don't just see them as you're not talking, you're no longer engaging, you're becoming, all this, all that, where they feel supported and respected. So, what does your culture in your workplace reward? There were many things that we mentioned, and we said integrity, they reward. I've forgotten the other ones that were said. But there's something about the hustle culture where some of the things, some of the behaviors often celebrated more than the employee wellness. You'll find that People experience more burnout at workplace, and the culture there is not able to pick that. And then you'll see people say, I have a toxic work culture. What is toxicity in work culture? It's just because we don't seem to humanize, understand, contextualize what people are going through, look at people first before we start judging them by their outcomes, because sometimes the people who drive the output, they're not taken care of, and therefore whatever we get to the very end has a problem with what is happening within them, but we are not able to pick that because it's not something you can just pick unless you have created that safety space. And many workplaces, and that's what I use it, I always say it is unintentional. So we won't crucify them, but you'll see some workplaces unintentionally glorify exhaustion in these ways. We have employees who never rest, but they are praised. You don't see so and so is always very early. You come to the office, you find them and they're almost always the last ones to leave, you know. Then you will hear something like, some places that you take leave, it's questioned, or you're told, no, you can't take leave now. Or anytime you're feeling exhausted, they're like, no, you can't leave now because we still have. So sometimes you want to rest, but the culture doesn't actually. When you put it on your schedule, when you're thinking your time has come, you're told, no, not this time. The workplace is needing you. Boundaries are interpreted as lack of commitment. You know, there are times you say, no, allow me to work the stipulated time to this time. I'll give my all, because you know too well that you being late means somebody else not getting their medication, means a missed appointment, means the other thing, your children not having someone to check their homework. And then you'll check that homework, you take care of the person that who needs your care before you even take care of yourself. Sometimes you feel exhausted, and when you want to rest, it's seen as laziness. So this burnout has its own consequences, you know. There is reduced creativity. Sometimes you want innovation, but people don't even have room to innovate. They have room for survival. Emotional detachment. People just, you're present but present. You're not feeling like connecting with anyone. Some jobs require that we interact with each other. Then people start saying, hey, squeezy. It's very hard to get through to them. But when they started going down, nobody asked, by the way, what's up? Increased conflict, because some people's way of getting stressed up is just blurting it out. So without realizing, you projected your the things that you're going through, or the things that you're harboring, to the people around you. Poor decision making, because half the time you have no clarity of mind. Again, sometimes if the workplace is not very supportive, it can have very high staff turnover, and this culture can be in a department, sometimes not in the whole corporate. You may find on one side a very good manager who is supportive, on another there's also a very high turnover because people don't feel heard, don't find a safe place to express themselves. And usually there's a mental and physical wellness decline. So, for us who are employers, for us who have been given responsibility to lead, we need to be offering flexibility where people can feel taken care of, where there's work life integration, where there's emotional safety. You know, that is the only way we are going to sustain productivity. Otherwise, we'll have people who are present but present. There is nothing that is happening, and still production will be an issue. If they ask for leave, they're told, no, you can't go, you didn't perform yesterday. So they'll show up and again and just be present. So you'll be saying they're not achieving their output, but then it's still the same thing. Maybe that one day rest would have rejuvenated them to be able to carry on. So who takes care of the caregiver? Now, if I have someone who I'm hosted in my house and I'm always taking care of them, who takes care of me? Who takes care of you? And if you're not directly taking care of them, how do you make sure you take, or at least acknowledge and notice that they need care? So, to all of us who are here, because we are all victims of this, let's use the chat box. When is the last time you rested without feeling guilty about it? When last did you intentionally rest without feeling guilty? Let's use our chat box and say, when did you last rest without feeling an intentional resting, where you decide today, I am just going to take care of me, whether I'm going to read a book, whether I'm going to just take a nature walk, or just be in the house and watch movies. Jay, do we have responses coming in?
Over the weekend, it's been a minute, and Anne says that it's not easy for people to understand what caregivers go through. Was a caregiver to my spouse who had two cancers for 18 years, and only a handful of people understood the weight I carried. The Lord rested him on 20th January 2026. I'm doing the same for my aged mom. Take heart, Anne. All is well. We can see Mungai can't remember when. Anne never rested, not easy. Mugenda says last Wednesday. And maybe I think Nancy, you should tell us what rest means. You know, there are some of us there are some of us that says last Wednesday, and
Mm.
they had their phones. Sometimes others understand that rest is not going to work. Maybe having an off day. So you'll need to explain to us what you mean by rest.
Thank you very much, Jay. And I think we will take it back to them. But before we do, the one you read about one of us who has had to take care of a spouse, the name is Anne, if I didn't get it wrong.
Misia. She's registered with an email address and Misia.
And I don't know whether Anne would feel confident to allow me to ask a few questions. If she can put on the mic. Maybe it will shed a perspective to some of us who are here and maybe would understand firsthand from her.
It's
Anne, you
okay.
can.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne. And also, I appreciate you for this is going to be you being vulnerable to us and with us. And firsthand, you as a caregiver for 18 years, well done. Well done. It doesn't come easy. Would you tell us how you were able to navigate?
Um, Initially, it was extremely difficult. My place of work, nobody understood me. At one time, I was actually sacked because I was not constant at my place of work. Later on, I was reinstated. It was a new boss who understood me and asked me to work online if I'm able. If I'm not able, I tell her. She's a very pleasant lady. And I did that. But meanwhile, I was suffering a lot. In fact, I went into depression, but it's like just me. My late husband happened to have been a medical doctor. So still in that vulnerable state, he was able to prescribe dawahs for me. Really, let me say it was not easy. It wasn't at all, at all, at all. And people did not understand what was happening because I was between home, Nairobi Hospital, Aga Khan Hospital, came back home. We are in ICU, Aga Khan Kisumu. We moved to ICU, Eldoret Hospital, ICU, St. Luke's for days and days. Then when we came back to the house, I realized I was going to have a mental breakdown and I had to get somebody to help me. So we were helping one another, uh, especially when they fixed the peg tube where we had to blend the food and give him through that peg tube. I needed help because it was day and night. So when I brought in somebody to help me, I had to work at night and the person worked during the day. But you know, it's your spouse. Even if you are in bed, you can't sleep knowing the suffering is going through or is going through. So I developed headaches, which I don't know what kind of headache those were, whether migraine or stressful, but somehow I managed. And he finally told me one day that you've done your very, very best. It is time to say goodbye. Just release me because I know where I'm going. Of course, nobody can say goodbye to a spouse, to a mother, to whoever is your relative. I pulled my hand away and walked out. He told me, my dear, even if you pull out your hand, it's time to say goodbye. Just release me. I know where I'm going. Then he shared with me a dream he had seen of people who were very happy. He wanted to go there, but he was told you cannot come because there are too many people praying for you and holding on to you. So he told me, release me so that I go to that nice place. Of course, I didn't do that. I mean, I didn't release him. I walked out to go and cry. When I came back, he had stopped talking completely. Then we rushed him to our nearest ICU. He was there for 5 days, not talking. You call him, he simply says, And then he breathed his last very early in the morning on 28th of January in my presence. I don't know how to recover from that. I'm standing on the promises of God that really I can recover. And then currently my mother, it's not that she's not really sickly, but she's old. So I'm taking care. Coughs here and there, hospital once in a while. And you can see it has come too soon. I don't know whether there are people in this group who can help me out on how to navigate, how to, I don't know. I don't know, but I'm taking baby steps. And every time, of course, I get out of the house, there's the grave before me. Yeah, let me stop there for now.
And
Hello?
we are really sorry for the experience and even for the loss of your dear beloved husband. And we pray that he may rest in eternal peace. And meanwhile, the brevity of what you've been able to endure, thank you again for being vulnerable and sharing with us. We can feel the weight in your voice. We can feel your tears, even from where we are. We're really sorry. And for your question, who can support you? I am willing to take you up at no cost. I will walk with you. And I pray that you're going to find your footing and your balance. So Myafia Africa will take care of your bills and the rest of it until you're on your feet again. And to the rest of us, and I pray that you get a lot of grace. So I don't know whether to indulge you again because I wanted to ask you, how do you take care of yourself when you're doing all this?
Maybe a small background. I was myself very unwell. I've had 2 spine surgeries.
Okay.
I'm on crutches. The last third spinal surgery, they had to fix metal brackets in my spine. But now what I realized happened that when he went down badly in September, I completely forgot myself. I didn't take care of myself at all, at all. All my energy, everything was on him. After burial, I think 5 days after burial, then I went down. That's when I realized my feet were going numb. And I was taken to hospital by my children. I went to see the neurosurgeon, who I had to confess to him that I had not been going for any physiotherapy. I've not been going for any checkup. Sometimes I was unable to take my medication as well. Really, I don't want to lie. I don't think I took care of myself. I did not. Because all my energy, all my everything was on my spouse. And this is a medical doctor who was suffering. And he had even started writing a book entitled When the Doctor is the Patient. So we were sharing all that. In short, I forgot about myself. I didn't take care of myself. I could have meals, all right. If I'm feeding him using the peg tube, I'm done. Maybe I have a small bite. But that self-care, I didn't. And I think that's why after the burial, then I went down myself. But the neurosurgeon is helping me with medications, and I'm also doing my physiotherapy 4 times a week. And I'm also taking some short walks where I can manage. Yeah, that is what it is. For mom now, I have somebody there who is there full time. I can already do the provisions, the medications, the food, and paying that person. But I'm not physically there all the time because I realized I'll break down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much again, Anne, for trusting us to listen to your story. And to the rest of us, we are sending to you lots of love and encouragement, even at this point. And I will pick this conversation later off this wall. Jay, you could actually have her get the contact for her, then we can reach out later. And clearly, to the participants, firsthand, you can hear from Anne, who has actually walked the journey in some of these things that we are taking like they're just conversations, they're actual experiences that people have to go through. And I know there is also maybe some of us here who are feeling us touching that part of them, that they're like, oh my God, it's been hectic, it's been heavy, and I didn't know where to get an outlet. If need be for us to organize a day, we just get a breather and just have a lived experience sharing and how we are coping, then Jay is up to it with Esther to ensure that this happens. And if that's needed, you can put it in the chat, and I'm sure they're ready to have that happen. And Anne has said it clearly that caregivers will often prioritize everyone else or neglecting themselves. That Anne herself needed care while caring for someone else, but she prioritized the spouse, forgot about herself, and now she's picking it up because caregivers are often the emotional backbone for others, but they sometimes neglect their own health, ignore emotional fatigue, where you feel like, let me push myself a little, let me push myself a little. That's how now the severe burnout happens. Feeling guilty when you're resting. She said, how could I sleep when my husband is writhing in pain? So sleep deprivation. Sometimes we just go on survival mode, autopilot. We just there. And have you ever seen people who are in so much stress that you put food in the microwave, then you walk away, you forget completely about it, then the time you remember you needed to eat again, you start looking for that food, you won't remember it's in the microwave. You're such on a survival mode that even your brain has gone for a break, so you're not coordinating things. You put your
You
phone
put your phone
down, and
down,
then
and then why are you posting this video? Wait.
and the next thing, you're trying to look for it everywhere, and probably you won't even find it unless you ask for help. So sometimes it has an effect that other people can see, and they're wondering, are you okay? And you live and laugh it off and be like, imagine because but in the real sense something is happening in there, but because we can't see it, we don't talk about it. So over time this is causes a lot of anxiety to some people, especially when you start realizing, but am I losing my mind? Why am I misplacing things? If you now get the key to your car and you get to the house, your children run very fast. Mom, bring that key, because tomorrow morning all of us are going to be woken up because you will not remember where that key was lastly put. So people around you start noticing those small things. If you are alone, you can imagine now how that hectic can become. Compassion fatigue. You've taken care of somebody until now you feel irritable. Why can't they try a little? Can't they see I'm getting tired? Not because you're being a bad person. And by the way, we should always extend a lot of grace to caregivers. Sometimes there are those, again, we all have different personalities. So you see some people being a bit uncouth or unkind, but maybe it's because of how much pressure they've taken in. So they have this compassion fatigue that manifests as being careless. And it's just because they're feeling like, I've done so much, I've done everything, things are not changing, things are not improving. And sometimes they can even pull out and pull away. Um, So organizations at this point just need to see if productivity, relationships, health, and emotional stability are affected. Encourage people to rest, if at all you even get to understand what they are going through. She says she got fired, because she wasn't at her workstation most of the time. But then a different person who understood her case even gave her flexible working hours, and that has restored her dignity. You know how much sometimes some of these things can actually make you even question a lot of things, spiritual and even yourself, in how things are not panning out. So as a leader, you and I, and even when we even see people missing the cues, we could tap and tell them, I think here there's a problem. Please take care, take time and understand where these people are coming from. Allow them to rest, give them flexibility for mental health days, counseling support. You can hear that our Anne is asking, how do I get support? Sometimes that support, and as I've said, sometimes the counseling support is just to go and pour it out. Sometimes you just need to show up to this person one day and tell them, today you want to sleep, I'm just going to sit here. Tell me what needs to be done. And even if they resist, ask them, no, I know this is good for you. What that does to them, it is better than just leaving them to carry on higher. There's a book I read called The Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And there's an explanation where he says that one time when he was trying to streamline his organization culture, he there's a lot that he did, but then one time one of the employee had a parent who was very sickly. And so he exhausted his days that he could be given on off. And then when the other colleagues realized what's happening to him, they all decided to forfeit and few numbers of their days to be given to this particular employee so that they're able to take care of what they need to take care of. And we can actually decide to invoke the HR policy and we say that has never been seen or heard. Now, this is where we now bring the humanizing. And is it practical? Is it needed? Should we employ it? As opposed to saying no, within the policy. So are we looking at the people? Are we looking at the system or processes? Who do we value most? Who is giving us that which we need as an organization? So we need to have a lot of team support so that we can also be able to understand. As I've said, it doesn't need to be a HR issue. Even you can notice maybe the HR is missing it because they're not interacting with people a lot more. Point it out to someone and tell them, I think it's time we checked what's happening to this person. We've talked about consideration and flexibility. Sometimes people, she's favored, is allowed to come in late. Then you start labeling this person, adding to their already emotional burden, adding a lot more because you don't even understand, neither do you even want to ask. And especially if it is a different gender, you start thinking, oh, okay, they have a thing. Now, this person is wondering, do you even know I don't have the time? Because what I'm dealing with, because doesn't mean that because we are opening up, we'll tell everybody, we'll tell to those who matter. And sometimes there are people who say, don't share it out because maybe the culture is not very pleasant. Some people still make them feel like they're weakling or so there are times the quotas are just limited. So consideration is not favoritism, and it needs to be treated in a way that people understand that those people who are handling real life responsibilities require to remain productive. So, for example, if we have to meet every so often, but you can have some things that can be done at the workplace. And maybe I need to ask this because we are all colleagues at work. How can we make life easier for caregivers now that we can actually anticipate that we will have them around us? In the chat section, and Jay will help me to read it out. How do you think we can help us ourselves even before we talk about, because sometimes we see our leaders, we forget that we are leaders in our own capacity because we need to work as a team. How can we support the caregivers at our workplaces? Let's chat in the chat box. How can colleagues make life easier for caregivers? Jay, you can help me to read it out.
We can see we have giving an ear to talk. There's one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Or what is in your workplace? Like what is in your workplace that supports caregivers? It's also good to learn from what others are doing. Anything else? Jay,
We
have we
have
had another?
by allowing them to share when they are ready, allowing people to share their stories when they are ready.
Mm-hmm. And the question would be, even Jay, as the other questions come in, how do we know someone is ready to share? Sometimes you will wait for forever, because if already I'm not feeling safe to share, I will not share. What we need is to create those spaces, because if I approach you and I say, I need to take you out because I see something has been happening, you can take them out or you can sit with them and just be with them. Don't force them, be like, you're not even talking about it, and you all the time you're not even looking like this and like that. No, you're not even being helpful. You're just making this person shut a little more. It requires a lot of patience with them, because they may not trust you on the first instance. So again, it depends with what hierarchies. Do they feel safe to say whatever they say and where will it land? So have you created that space for them to want to share with you? So that is very important to realize that sometimes we are the ones
They had
to
someone,
affect when people want to share. Anything else that has come in?
Mary talked about empathizing with them. And then we have occasional check-ins that focus on well-being,
Mm-hmm.
not just performance.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, about emotional check-ins. Well, I see there's a lot of psychological safety trainings happening in workplaces. And if managers, leaders would take this in a very different way, we would actually make very wonderful places. Because for anyone to be able to do an emotional check in, they have to be very trusted. So do your peers trust you to even want to open up? Because an emotional check-in means me being vulnerable, me feeling that I will not be the next time used as an example somewhere. So those emotional check-ins also require trust. Sometimes it's also good to look at workload distribution. We've seen in instances where someone is sick and your work waits for you as a pile at your desk. Then the day you come back, you're even anxious because everything has been waiting for you. Nobody touched your work. So you even get sick again. And people start assuming you're running away from your responsibilities. So sometimes when we are able to see someone is struggling or have to be on sick off, as a leader, it's important for you to step in, redistribute that work so that when they come, they're not starting where they stopped. They're not feeling like it's a punishment being at the workplace. When having that compassion when they're in a crisis without telling them, how many days you've utilized. Sometimes there's those things that we just negotiate and just we will deal with the rest of the things later. Hybrid work arrangement, we've talked about that. Yeah, if people want to take their leave days because that's how they feel they're going to stay sober, then allow them, so that they are also not breaking in when they are still within. So because support does not only come from the HR policies, as I have stated, our culture is shaped by the managers, the team leaders, the colleagues, and the organizational attitude. Sometimes people assume when I say culture, they think of their bad boss. Before they became a bad boss, maybe they're also having their own unresolved issues, also maybe emanating from within the system or without the system. So we are all part of the culture that we create. And we can actually change the culture if we are determined to have better way of doing at it. But most people on top there always determine how that culture goes. So those small acts of support, can you imagine those bosses who are always unreachable because they are, I don't know on what floor? If you were to meet and ask you, how are you doing? It feels very, first of all, very suspicious. To some people, it feels very suspicious because they don't interact on a normal day. We need to bridge that gap of our leaders and colleagues, so that and people see you and scatter in all different directions. And it means, and then you have your favorites. So your favorites will always tell you, and they'll get the leave when they want. So we need to have a culture. We as managers, we as team leaders, we as head of departments, we need to create a culture. Just asking people, by the way, how are you doing today? Like, how are you really doing? Because the default is always, I'm okay. That's not what you're looking for. Don't tell them that is not what I'm asking. It's like, how really are you doing? And sometimes you'll ask some people this question and they break down. That's not the time to say, now, why are you crying? That's the time to say, can we go to the office? That is what empathy is all about. Offering help without judgment, without reminding people the way I supported you the other time and now you're here. If you support from this point of compassion, it can't be used as a point of reference because you did not do it so that it is a carry forward. Yeah. How do you give grace during difficult seasons? You know, how do you avoid workplace gossip around people's struggles? Yeah, because there are people who will actually, as I've said, I don't have to repeat myself. So employees may forget the policies, by the way, during these difficult situations, but they rarely forget how our workplace made them feel during work. During what? During the difficult times. What have I said? I that employees can forget their workplace policies, during these difficult times, but they rarely ever forget if you made them feel a certain type of way during their difficult times. So this consideration is very, very important, key to consider, so that we collaborate, all of us. We have the flexibility, and the flexibility looks like there are days they will want to go for medical appointments. Please allow them to. It could even be for them that I've taken care of the person I need to take care for until I need to take care of myself now. Today is me who wants to go to the hospital. But then don't remind me, see, the other day I'd given you permission to take your parent. Today it's me. So we are speaking about a different situation. We should be able to be very accommodating. Flexibility may look like wanting to feel heard and supported, and sometimes just wanting to recover from some emotional crises that happen that sometimes you don't even want to keep talking about. So these flexible things usually can help with productivity. Someone who was already looking like they're going south, they start now looking, they're performing well. There's loyalty. Some of the things that you crave to have in a staff is loyalty. But how does a staff have loyalty when they're always feeling mistreated, feeling misunderstood, feeling bullied? Because it's also bullying in the workplaces, or what we call the politics. If you give people flexibility, they will give you reduced absenteeism and reduced presenteeism. It will count for them to be there because they feel part of the process. So I think that's the time I've been given by Jay, and I would want to stop there, and you will advise us further because I think I just went halfway through. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you so much, Nancy, for this. And I know time is not on our side, and we are planning to have the part 2 of this, possibly next Wednesday. I'll host Nancy as we continue doing this. I will allow anyone with a question, maybe to type in the chat section. I've also shared our YouTube channel in the chat section as well. You can we'll have these uploaded on the YouTube channel, so you can be able to, if you join us late, you can be able to watch again, and the next session as well will be uploaded. So if there are no any questions, then you will allow me to pray even as we finalize.